Formula 1 isn't just altering the power unit rules next year, it's changing car aero too and even banning some key elements. Many eye-catching innovations are being either totally outlawed or aggressively clamped down on as part of a tweaked rules package for 2027. The aim behind it all is to reduce downforce, stop development wars before they get out of control, look after the tyres more, and help F1's energy-starved cars. But before we go into the details of what's new, let's go through what's prompted the moves. Most of the talk so far on F1's 2026 rules revolution has been about the new hybrid power units, which feature a nominal 50-50 split. In reality, it's 53-47 between the internal combustion engine and battery power. That hasn't worked for drivers or fans. So by adjusting fuel flow and battery power allowance, the split between ICE and battery is shifting to 60-40 by 2028, with an intermediate step to 58-42 in 2027. Efforts to improve energy management have not just revolved around the engine though. The aerodynamics of the cars have also had an impact on what we've seen. F1 saw in the early races how the performance of cars through corners had a serious influence on the amount of energy available. That's because the quicker a car goes through a corner, the less energy it's able to harvest. So to help make the cars harvest more, a push was needed to pull back downforce, which has triggered the changes we can see to the cars. Some of the changes coming for 2027 are also about stopping teams working in areas that have proved unexpectedly fruitful this year. So the changes are both intended to cut back on gains found in 2026, as well as to stop things getting even more extreme going forward. This means some areas of the cars have been simplified, like in the floor area, while others are either being more heavily restricted or banned totally. So what's actually changing? Well, there's been some minor fettling in many areas of the rules, like those involving bodywork edges, trims and mouse holes, but we're going to focus on the key parts here. What's been agreed is concentrated on two key elements of the cars, the rear wing diffuser area and the front of the floor. Let's look at the rear first. It's the rear wing that's perhaps going to look the most different. The rear wing dimensions overall are going to be altered to make it less effective. The wing will be slightly shallower by around 20mm, lowering the downforce produced. There's also a band coming into place on the upper flap extenders, which are known as hangers, that a host of teams have run above the upper elements of the rear wings this year. Mercedes started this trend in pre-season testing of adding what is effectively an extra mini winglet that helps with airflow. These featured on the cars from the start of the season. Title rival Ferrari then quickly followed suit by adding its own version in the centre of the wing that came into play when it started running what's become known as its Macarena wing. And since then, other teams have further optimised and evolved the designs to make them increasingly more complex. From 27, this area of development will no longer be allowed, as the team's designs will have to fit within the confines of the rear wing profile when it's in corner mode. Another area being restricted for 2027 revolves around the straight mode fairing wings that first appeared in Monaco. These extra winglets took on many forms up and down the grid, with Red Bull's unique concept said to look like a squirrel. The wings were the result of teams exploiting an allowance in the regulations for bodywork freedom in the area that's normally used for the active aero actuator. Teams realised they could use this to help produce extra downforce if they fitted wings here, especially when in Monaco where straight mode was banned and they did not need the actuators at all. Some teams have kept on exploiting the extra winglets here, with Ferrari recently introducing a McLaren-style triple wing cascade concept at the Hungarian Grand Prix with its Macarena wing that doesn't need an actuator. Next year though, the more extravagant solutions won't be allowed, as the FIA is introducing a new exclusion zone of bodywork in this area. Whereas this year teams could utilise a full allowance of a 1000mm height throughout for these wings, for next year there's a new limit in place where it must taper down to blend in with the 880mm height of the rear wing at the back. So while teams may still be able to exploit things a little in the area at the front of the fairing zone, there may not be as many gains to be had overall next year, which may put a stop to teams focusing much effort on intricate designs here. Another aerodynamic area that's been aggressively developed this year and will be outlawed for 2027 is exhaust wings. These small wings may look innocuous, but they've actually proved to be quite powerful. They help not only divert airflow up towards the rear wing area, which helps with downforce here, but they also act as diffuser extensions, helping clean up the airflow coming from under the car. This was an idea that Ferrari first unleashed in pre-season testing, as it made use of an opening in the regulations. Exploiting an allowance to run an extended version of what's known as a tail box in an area that's close to its differential, Ferrari compressed its crash structure and gearbox position together to allow the wing. Many rivals are unable to copy this, as their gearbox and crash structure designs were already set in stone, so are too far apart. It would therefore have been expensive to redo these just to fit this wing in. But some clever thinking from engineers found another opening in the rules through an allowance for what's known as a tailpipe support in this area of the car. The regulations do not limit what shape these supports can be, so teams jumped on these to create some innovative wing solutions. While these exhaust wings were all deemed legal by the FIA, the governing body was keen not to make this an area where an expensive development war was unleashed for the long term, and so it's moved to stamp these out for 2027. This has been achieved through a new exhaust exclusion zone, which outlaws any part of the car within a circular cylinder shape that is 20mm greater than the tailpipe and covers the area around the exhaust. Furthermore, regulations that allow tailpipe supports to be fitted have been removed entirely from the 2027 rules. So exhaust wings will be no more after this season. But not everything is being taken away from the teams though. A new rear wing pylon brace is allowed for next year that will sit between the supports. Lying in a fixed zone between the rear wing pylons, which are the central supports that hold the rear wing in place, there are some strict limitations that will keep these elements compact and roughly symmetrical in cross-section. They must also be hidden from side view by the pylons to stop teams extending the wings too much. It is anticipated, however, that there will be enough room for teams to create some monkey seat style wings, as we saw in F1's past. Monkey seats were small wings that were placed below the main wing and behind the central exhaust to help condition airflow in the pre-turbo hybrid era. They earned their nickname because they were the perfect fit for a monkey to sit in. They made a limited return before being outlawed for the start of the 2018 season through an extension of the tailpipe length and an exclusion zone being imposed around this area to prevent aerodynamic components being placed here. Towards the front of the car, the FI is also reducing the maximum allowance of what is known as floor leading edge devices from 5 to 3. This will pull back the effectiveness of the channels underneath the car that help produce downforce. Underneath the car, there's also going to be a big reduction in the length of the plank that is fitted to the floor. The plank is a part that dictates how low teams can run their cars to the ground, as it's not allowed to wear away too much. So its design has quite a big impact on both ride heights and angle of attack. One of the key aims for the 26 regulations was to lift the cars off the ground a bit. The previous rule set had resulted in teams running as low to the ground as possible, and the drivers didn't particularly like it. But the longer plank in play this year resulted in teams extending what is known as the bib tray under the nose. One of the concerns that the FI had when it saw the early 26 designs was that this bib tray risked some safety compromises. The fear was that in the event of a car riding up above another one, like happened with Vitantonio Liuzzi and Michael Schumacher at the 2010 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, that even with the halo in place now, there was a risk of the bib tray penetrating the cockpit area. So to help, a new rule will see the plank front section being reduced from 900mm in length to 600mm. While the other changes agreed will focus teams' minds in trying to work out ways to claw back the lost downforce, it is this change to the plank that carries some wider implications. With the plank dictating ride height, reducing its length not only offers teams the chance to run things closer to the ground, but it can influence other aero decisions. One implication of this is the rake angle, which is the pitch where a car's rear ride height is set higher than the front. A high rake car can offer downforce gains if the floor and diffuser can be sealed properly, but it very much depends on how low you can get things at the front. Some teams like Aston Martin and Williams have pursued the high rake concept this season, but have had limited success. This is perhaps because they could not get the front of the car as low as they would like because of the plank length. So a shorter plank next year could make a high rake option that's been not so good this year a bit more effective. It may not be a coincidence then that two teams that have talked about the rule changes for next year as being significant are Aston Martin and Williams. Aston Martin team boss Adrian Newey senses a good opportunity for his team to make a step, while Williams chief James Vowles said that what is coming for next year will perhaps influence an all-new chassis direction. F1's car changes for next year are certainly not a revolution, but there's enough of an impact to deliver some intriguing change of directions for teams that got it wrong this year and work out those areas where they can exploit things again.